Hello. Hi. Welcome to the show. I hope you're having an incredible day. If not, I hope maybe that this makes it a little better. Maybe? Or helpful? Or you're taking notes? Maybe you put down your Animal Crossing Switch to join us? I don't know. I had to. Sometimes we have to stop being fiscally responsible to Tom Nook and start being fiscally responsible in the real world. It's painfully true. I hope you're having an amazing day. I'm Lexi Gaines. I'm going to be your host of the show today. We have so much to talk about. We're going to be talking to Galen, who does financial planning for broadcasters and esports and gaming in general, which I don't know about you, but I could use a little of that in my life. We're also going to be talking to Kayla about some incredible stuff happening with 1,000 Dreams, the Broadcaster Grant, Streams for Dreams, Women's History Month. Oh my gosh, so much to cover, so little time. Playing and watching at the same time is perfect. You keep being financially responsible in both worlds, and I'll keep being impressed with you. I don't know how you do it. I feel like good Tom Nook took 90% of my day. It's just taken it, and he's taken it, and he's left with it. He's gone. Tom took my life. Maybe he'll give it back. I don't know. Maybe. Or maybe he just owns it now. We'll find out. Hi, everyone. Hi. How you doing? So we're going to be first, oh my gosh. We're going to be talking to Galen. He's, from Buff Your Finances. We're going to be talking to him about financial planning. At the end of the interview, we'll be giving you an opportunity to ask questions. So if you have any like specific questions that we don't cover, please type them. Kayla's going to take them and make sure that I bring them up with you and we cover them with Galen. So I know that I had questions I wanted to ask, so I put them in here. So if you have anything you're curious about, please don't be shy and ask them. So give me a second and I'll pull them in here. Maybe, hopefully.
Hello.
Oh, hello! It worked.
Awesome. Am I supposed to be doing video, just voice?
No, video is great. Video's perfect. Okay, hold on one second. Hello! Okay.
Hello.
I didn't burn anything. Everything's working. How are you? How's your day going?
Not too badly. Just sort of wrapping up the craziness that is the normal lead up till tax time.
I was about to say, it's probably a super crazy time of year for you.
It is, but it's also been weird because just last week they pushed the deadlines back by 3 months.
So yeah. So I feel
it kind
that
of
might
was like a
add
release
to
valve.
it. Yeah, you're like, it's crazy, but better, but also still such a weird time probably for finances in general. I know weird for me, but also a little bit of a relief.
Right, exactly. Well, I mean, if you were going to owe on taxes and payment and filing got pushed back 3 months, you basically just got an interest-free loan from the government, right? You're like, 3 months where you don't have to pay any interest on it, but you get to keep the money.
Yeah, you're like, do I thank you now? Thank you for the pandemic, maybe.
Yeah, no, this is a silver lining. This is not a...
That's a great word for it. A tiny silver
lining. If I
lining.
could trade it all back to not be stuck in my apartment all day.
I think.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us. It's so nice to have you.
Absolutely.
And
glad
taking
to.
time to talk about this because it's such an interesting and specific niche. I think explaining like what I do for a living is really hard, so I can't imagine explaining what you do specifically to like your coworkers or to not your coworkers, to like your peers or your family. My family's like, so what are you doing?
A lot of times it comes through when they're like, oh, my kid watches Minecraft stuff. And I'm like, sort of. Yes, that's close. You're almost there.
People will be like, my husband plays the Xbox. And I'm like, it's similar to that. Yes, you're on the right track.
Exactly. Or, I also do the analogy of like, well, people watch sports all the time when they're not playing sports, right? So they do the same thing with gaming. By the way, you may hear cries, baby toy sounds. We're all locked at home, right? So I've got a 6-month-old and she just woke up from a nap. So you may occasionally hear her off camera.
I feel like that's a blessing and we are excited. I hope I get to hear the baby cry. My dogs love to like just burst into my office. So
yeah. Oh, that's true. There may be cats also.
Perfect. Actually, that sounds great. Sign me up. So what does a financial planner do? Can we give a rundown?
Yeah. So my job is to help people make good money decisions. And that can be over pretty much any aspect of their financial life. So traditionally, it's something where people talked a lot about investments and insurance, but that's because traditionally the industry worked with old rich people. Um, Realistically, though, it's pretty much anything. So I'm helping broadcasters with making sure that they're running their business as well, budgeting, yes, investments, insurance, if that makes sense, planning for the future, so they're actually saving some in retirement accounts. Making sure that every November, if you're in the U.S., we're signing you up for health insurance, so there's actually good coverage. Making sure that they get their taxes done and that they actually knew ahead of time what they were going up against. And then just the general like thing that you get from pretty much anyone. Hey, my friend mentioned they were doing this. Hey, I saw this thing on the news. Does that impact me? What do I have to do with it? My job is to answer those questions, help move them in the right direction.
Just to be a wealth of knowledge at all times.
Basically, yes.
So what is your role with Buff Finances, and what does a typical day look like for you?
Yeah, so it's my firm. I have one guy who works for me, but when I was interested in working with streamers, there weren't other firms really doing it. So pretty much my only option was to go out on my own. So I run Buff Your Finances, and gosh, in a typical day, I usually have 2 or 3 client meetings where we're talking about whatever is the topic at hand for them, the most recent thing. So, been a lot of taxes now. Um, I'm usually doing a meeting or two with he's called my paraplanner. It's called he's my assistant to talk to make sure that we're doing the prep work that we need to do for future client meetings, and then just generally reviewing how things are going. I use planning software that kind of hooks in my client's account, so I can go and check and see like, are there any dramatic changes? Are there things that I need to ask them about? And just sort of doing that future work, future looking work of tackling the current problems like taxes, but also making sure that we're not forgetting about everything that's coming up for the rest of the year, and how do I help my clients plan for that. So a mixture of client meetings and then sort of internal work to review, make sure everything looks good, and make sure that we're prepping for whatever the next wave of things is.
I can not even imagine how organized your brain is. It seems like the exact opposite of mine.
I use a lot of software to help me keep track of everything because it's way too much to just try and remember off the top. It's not that I'm somehow super good at being organized or something. It's that I use a lot of tools to help me do it.
Fair and valid and smart. So if someone was interested in Buff Your Finances or other info on financial planning, where should they go?
Well, my website's buffyourfinances.com. I think I saw my Twitter handle linked in the description. I'm on there more than is probably healthy. And then if you're looking at, just financial planning in general, you'll want to look at the CFP board, which is Certified Financial Planner. That's sort of one of the high-end industry designations that has a lot of really good resources for either learning to do some of that work yourself or for finding a professional. And then there's a group called NAPFA, which is the National Association of the Only something something. It's a group of people who don't want to sell you insurance, but instead want to give you advice. So those are the places you'd look.
Way nicer than people just constantly trying to sell you insurance.
Yeah.
Just people that want to give you advice. So what sort of preparation tips would you give to those in the industry to prepare them for taxes and other financial planning?
Yeah, so taxes is obviously one of the big ones. The biggest thing when it comes to taxes for a broadcaster is realizing that you're running a business. And that means a lot of different things when it comes to taxes. It means, first of all, someone else isn't doing it for you, right? When you're working for an employer, they are withholding taxes from your paycheck. They're making sure that the employment taxes or payroll taxes are being paid, all that kind of a thing. And that's all on you when you're self-employed or running your own business. So in terms of like approaching things as if you're running a business, which you are, you need to do things like actually track what you're earning, right? Put together all of the different things that you'll get. So your Twitch payout, and if you're on YouTube, if you sell merch, if you have sponsors or affiliate deals, or the whole world of things that could be just adding in tips, right? All the things that could be there. And then making sure that you're tracking your expenses, because one of the key things to know when you're a business owner is you get taxed on your net profit. And net profit means everything that you earned after accounting for everything that you spent to earn that money. So if you're a broadcaster, that is your internet, any equipment that you bought, commissions for things like emotes, subs to other streamers, travel to conferences, anything that you might pay someone to help with community management. Usually I see broadcasters spending, who are doing it full time at least, spending up to maybe like 30% or more of what they earned to run the stream, right? It's not, even though it's lower cost to run a stream than it is to run, say, a restaurant, it's still not no cost, right? So it's knowing what that net number is and just tracking things over time to make sure you know how you're doing. Besides that, in terms of prepping for taxes, it would be one of the biggest things to do would be setting aside a little each month, if you're able to, into a savings account that is specifically for paying taxes. In a in an ideal case, you're paying your taxes at least 4 times a year. They're called quarterly taxes in the U.S. Because if you aren't doing at least that, the IRS will assess penalties and interest. And those are, it's January 15th, April 15th, June 15th, and September 15th, I believe, are the dates when you owe those quarterly taxes. And that way, instead of April 15th coming around, you being like, oh, I owe $40,000, right? It's, oh, I paid a chunk, throughout the year, so it doesn't kind of kick you in the teeth quite as hard. And usually I say, with all this advice, it's always, if possible, right? Because there are plenty of times when it's not possible, but if possible, putting aside something like a quarter of what you earn into a savings account is pretty important. Now that can be different, if you have a married partner who works a job for someone else and they get taxes out of their paycheck and that kind of thing, that can change the equation a bit. But if it's you on your own, then you really need to think about prepping throughout the year, because you can always my daughter's chatting a bunch, sorry.
You're fine.
You can always, if you don't have what you need when tax time comes around, you can always set up a payment plan with the IRS, but obviously you'd prefer not to have to do that, right? That would make things a lot easier. And another thing is just talk with someone who knows what they're talking about when it comes to your taxes. While I don't prepare taxes, I work really closely with a CPA, a certified public accountant, who does do taxes for a lot of the people you would recognize in streaming and esports. And it's remarkable how many cases we see where a broadcaster went to a sort of general tax preparation firm that might be very good for doing tax prep for someone where it's, a couple where they both were employees of another company, and so it's kind of straightforward, but they have no idea what they're talking about when it comes to broadcasters. They don't know what your business looks like, so they don't know what kinds of things are relevant to you. Because when it comes to those expenses, and please interject with questions if I'm just lecturing, but
you're fine.
When it comes to those expenses that are relevant to your business, the IRS uses a standard that's called ordinary and necessary expenses. They recognize that it was impossible for them to know all forms of business that would ever come to be, right? No one would have predicted that streaming would be a career 20 years ago, right? And now it is the career that kids want, right? So because of that, their standards are, if this is something that is ordinary and necessary for running your business, it counts as a business expense. So even though most people couldn't write off the video games that they buy, for a streamer, absolutely you could, even if it's a game you didn't play on stream, right? So everyone and their mother is playing Animal Crossing right now, but say you bought Animal Crossing because you thought it might be good for your channel, you started to play it for a bit, and it just really didn't click with your audience.
Right.
You're still doing market research, essentially, right? Even if it's an idea that you eventually discard, you were still doing that for the business. For me, I'm able to write off the subs that I do to streamers, or if I, if I tip with bits, or if I go to, I went to PAX East, I was able to write off everything about going to PAX East. And most financial planners wouldn't, because most financial planners don't work with who I work with.
Right.
So it's that kind of a thing about knowing your business.
Yeah, I think I feel like everybody's main fear, especially like my parents would be like, just go to somebody to do their taxes. And like our generation is like, I'm telling you, they won't know what's happening. They won't understand. Yeah. Would you say there's a few specific differences doing taxes for broadcasters and esports?
Yes, there are some differences. There's overlap as well, obviously. I mean, there's high overlap just sort of in general, because a lot of people who are in esports on the competitive side also stream or have, sort of connection to the industry. But one of the differences I've seen the most in esports is just a lot of what you earn from the team is as if you were getting a paycheck from someone else, because you are, right?
Right.
So you're like a hybrid where you're not full business owner because you have this salary that you're getting from an org oftentimes, but you're also still oftentimes, at least in part, a business owner, because you have things like you may stream, sponsorship, appearances, all that kind of stuff that may be related to your org, or just maybe your own thing, right? Because you are equivalent to an NBA player in terms of marketability and things like that, right? So the main difference would be that you're kind of a hybrid between a business owner and employed by someone else. So you need to make sure that, so there are a couple of things that you could do, like have your org withhold more from your regular paycheck if you also have significant income from other, more business kind of ventures. So that way you don't have to worry as much about things like quarterly taxes, because it's getting withheld from your paycheck.
Right. Makes so much sense. I can only imagine. I feel like people, especially in like professional esports, have their like feet in so many shoes that you're like, how do I keep track of everything that you're doing? So I know you gave some good tips on this, but when it comes to sitting down and like looking at finances and your future, what are some of the best practices you would say to follow?
The first is the first and kind of biggest is just to know where you are today, to have a good picture of what your finances look like right now. There are a lot of tools that can help you with that. Mint.com is free and really good for it. But it's basically, what is everything that you own? What is everything that you owe? And what is everything that you earn? And what is everything that you spend? And you don't need to necessarily know all of that in every moment, right? That's kind of impractical. But taking the time to figure that out and check in on it a couple times a year is really a big deal, because it's basically a lot of what financial planning is helping people figure out where they are today and get to where they want to go financially. And most of my clients, when they first come to me, don't know where they are today or necessarily where it is that they want to go.
Right.
And it's really hard to move between those 2 points if you don't know what they are, right? So it's first of all figuring that out. Using tools like Mint or like Google Sheets if you want to use a spreadsheet to help to do it more manually. And then it's figuring out what is it that you actually are interested in, care about, because a lot of us work for money because money does a lot of helpful things. It's a super helpful tool, right? But it's ultimately a tool. It's not, we don't want the dollar that we have. We want what that dollar buys us, right?
Right.
So the most essential thing in financial planning is figuring out what it is you want that dollar to buy and why and when, because then you can from there map out what it might take to get from where you are today to where you want to be in the future. In addition to that, just in general, knowing that your budget or your cash flow, what's coming in and what's going out, is the core of everything else. You can make the best plan in the world that looks super pretty and all lines up and stuff, but if it doesn't actually have the cash flow to support it, if you have too much spending or not enough earning, it won't work. And even if people will come and start talking about like, oh, hey, I'm really interested in investing and all these kinds of things. It's like, well, you've got a bunch of really high interest credit card debt. Like maybe we should deal with that first, right? So it's making sure that you know what's going in and what's going out, and that it supports what you're looking to do. And if it doesn't, figuring out why and how you can tackle that. Because even though things like growing your money with investing might be an interesting idea and might be ultimately something that really supports building the life that you want, it's kind of impractical to invest, especially because a reasonable assumption is that if you're invested fully in the stock market, you'll get somewhere like 7 to 9%. But if you're putting that money towards that and paying 25% on a credit card, you're losing a lot of money in that spread.
Right.
I mentioned it already, but having some money set aside for taxes. And also, if you're a broadcaster, one of the big things I would say that is certainly easier to say than to do, because there are a ton of non-financial reasons to live where you live, but you're location independent. You can live anywhere in the country that has decent internet, right? You don't necessarily have to live in Austin, LA, Seattle, right? So if you're someone who is a broadcaster who is newly full-time or who is interested in making broadcasting your career, one of the things that you can do is dramatically lower the cost, your costs, by living somewhere inexpensive, because you can, right? I mean, heck, one of the biggest streamers on the platform, Carnage, lives in North Carolina, I believe, which is not exactly like a hub, right?
Yeah, I was like living near him, and I was like, "Oh, literally lives in the same town as
There you
me."
go. Yeah,
super low costs.
Exactly. And now there are, I have plenty of clients who live in LA and who get opportunities that they wouldn't get otherwise because they are LA local, right? That's a trade-off that you have to look at. But if you're someone for whom those opportunities might not be there yet anyways, doing what you can to lower your costs is a really big benefit, because most businesses fail not because the business itself can't make money, but it's that it can't make enough money to support the owner, right? It doesn't have enough, you call it like runway, right, or float to get to the point where the owner can live off of what it's earning, even if it's earning a positive amount. And one of the last things when it comes to just in general looking at finances in your future is put together a plan that treats you like a human. And by that I mean set up things that are, automated and you don't have to think about them, because the more you have to think about it and exert willpower for it to happen, the less likely it is to happen, right?
Right.
If I just could say, yeah, I'm going to the gym now 4 times a week, and then it just happened, I would, have a little less of all this. And so, make sure that it's something that's realistic for you, automated so that it doesn't cost you a lot of willpower to do, and also treats you like a human in that humans have and need fun spending, right? There's only so long you can go with depriving yourself of the things that give you joy and entertainment and help you relax and stuff. So it may be in the short term that, like, yeah, knuckling down and paying off some credit cards makes a ton of sense, but make sure you've built in rewards that keep you going, because the best made plan fails if it can't be implemented, if it can't be actually put in action, right? So make sure you're giving yourself things that make it actionable and make it happen without you having to think about it too much.
That makes it's almost like, when people go on like a very serious diet and you're like immediately like, I cannot do this. I thought I could do this and I cannot do this, because there's just absolutely like no leeway in between.
Yep. Exactly. And so, like, it's the kind of thing, actually dieting is a great analogy. Just training in general, like on the fitness side, is a great analogy, because it is stuff that requires willpower, and it often is stuff that requires cutting back, right? Or talking with someone who can show you, okay, like if you do this repeatable thing, you will be moving in the right direction. But the key is that follow through. So a plan that takes longer but you can implement is much better than a plan that goes more quickly but you'll never implement.
Right.
Just like a diet.
Yeah, a slow and steady wins the race sort of mindset. Okay, so I have a few questions. So I know a few questions I compiled earlier. So mine were like managing, especially from like a streamer point of view, do you find it difficult, or how do you like manage taxing things like donations from like so many various points for a streamer? You know what I mean? Like, I feel like as a streamer, you get donations that filter through to like PayPal, but also to Streamlabs, and then you also deal with like your like basic Twitch payout.
Mm-hmm.
Those things are all taxed. How do you find easiest to keep track of all of those things?
So there's a couple things you can do there. One of the most basic is, and just one of the things that you want to do because it's broadly practical, is setting up a separate business account, and credit card for your business. So have the, Lexi Games bank account and credit card. And then just have everything you earn go there and everything you spend for the business go there, so that when it comes time to look at how you're doing month to month or tracking for taxes, you only have to look at one place and you don't have to parse like, oh, was this a personal expense? Was this for the business? Where did this money come from? Because that, again, the less difficult you make it for yourself, the more likely you are to do it and do it successfully. So setting up a separate business bank account and credit card that are only for business makes a ton of sense. If you if you want to get a little bit more advanced, you can also use bookkeeping software like QuickBooks is the sort of most common one. Wave is one. FreshBooks, and those do a bit more to help you like sort of see some of reports on your income and spending. But again, if you're doing that, you want to first have those separate accounts that you can say, yes, these are only for the business. And it's really easy to open free bank accounts and credit cards that don't have like fees attached to them and stuff like that. So it can even be, if you bank with like Chase, it can even be that you have your one login, but just open a separate savings account or checking account that is for the business, right?
Right.
It doesn't have to be a business account, although that can make things a little easier. So that's the one I'd say. I've built some tools internally that I use to, it's still a manual process, mind you, but at least that we use to track for our clients to see what it is they've earned and what source it comes from. And I don't want to, I say I don't want to mess with your screen capture, but I do try and build like once we've once we've gotten through the point of doing their taxes, try and build sort of a visual diagram of where things came in from and where they spent for my clients, because a lot of streamers are more visual than analytical.
Yes.
I don't know if you know so I have some clients where you give them a spreadsheet and they're like, perfect, good, I can manipulate this is what I want. And a lot of my clients aren't that, which is fair. I mean, everyone's
you're like, here
different.
is this graph.
Yeah. And that's what accounting software can help you with as well, that bookkeeping software. So something like QuickBooks. And I think at its most basic level, it's like 10 or $15 a month. It's not very expensive. So that's usually what it is with clients. I mean, I'm meeting with my clients usually 3 or 4 times a year, and oftentimes at each of them, it's the hey, can you quickly pull your export from Streamlabs, pull your stuff from your Twitch analytics dashboard, update us on what a sponsor might have paid you, because that way we can just sort of go, again, like I was saying earlier, do it a couple times throughout the year, so it's less of a headache to do it all at once.
Yeah, a stressful sort of end of the season pound.
Exactly. And the less time if you do it in shorter intervals too, you're just less likely to not be able to do something else. Like, it would suck to have a really, really cool opportunity come up that you couldn't do because you had to spend 3 days on your taxes.
Right. Yeah. You're like, sorry, I can't go to this incredible convention. Now I have to do my taxes. Do you think what sort of planning advice would you give to broadcasters or esports pros for something like the COVID outbreak or potential like crisis finance planning?
Yeah. So I just posted an article on my blog yesterday about like some of the factors that might play into how this will go. So streaming and esports are pretty well positioned to do better than most other forms of entertainment in a time of social isolation, right? You're already it's free content most of the time at its most basic, right? YouTube is ad supported, Twitch at its most basic level is ad supported. So that's really good for getting for basically keeping viewers or eyeballs in a time when people are stuck inside. It's something that you can do from home or from your phone, right? And if sports aren't happening, bars are closed, concerts aren't happening, right? Like if all of your sort of normal other forms of entertainment are happening, you can't even get together for a board game night, right? For most people, you're pretty well positioned to grow your viewership base. Now it could be, and I, I think no one knows exactly how these two forces play against each other. I expect that as we have economic difficulties from this, which we will, there will be fewer companies spending ad dollars on entertainment. And that's, sponsorships for broadcasters, that's ads on the platform, all that kind of thing. But there's also so many fewer places that they could be spending that money that it could be the kind of thing where you're getting a much bigger slice of a smaller pie, right?
Right.
So I can't say for certain how those two factors will play off against each other, but I think it's very possible that streaming and YouTube experience and esports experience a sort of things don't change too crazily much because there's fewer dollars coming in, but also more eyeballs coming in.
Right.
And then we get released at some point and everyone goes outside and goes, holy shit, I can go to the bar again, or whatever it is, right?
Right.
And then after a month or so of that, your baseline viewership level is higher than it was pre-crisis, because people come back, they want to do things at home. In terms of prepping as an individual, so basically what I say, that's all to say, like, I think streaming is and YouTube and esports are all well positioned to essentially survive the crisis pretty well and then really explode afterwards. Not that they haven't been before, but
right.
And then in terms of as an individual, how do you position yourself? Well, if you're someone who lives off of streaming, sort of just like I was saying before, one of the best things you can do for your business is make sure that you are in a position to be taking advantage of opportunities if they come up and weathering storms if they happen. So that's saving a bunch of money. Like, I recommend that my clients have something like 6 to 12 months of their spending just sitting in cash somewhere, which is a lot. But it's that kind of buffer that lets you survive these kinds of things. Oftentimes when you have economic downturns, what happens is a lot of companies fail, and the companies that survive it then have an absolute boom afterwards because a lot of their competitors went out of business, right? So in terms of prepping, if a lot of in the entertainment space, if a lot of your competitors are potentially going out of business, what you want to do for the near future is survive.
Right.
Cut your costs where you can. You don't want to be going to your community and saying, "Hey, I know you just lost your job, but tip me," because that's not going to work.
Oh God, yeah.
It's a terrible look, and it's not going to work.
Yeah.
But be a place of comfort and solace for your community. I mean, the things that broadcasters are normally doing anyways, but even more so in a time of crisis, help build a community that supports each other and ultimately eventually you, right? Because if you're helping people be less stressed and distressed during a really tough time, you're providing something very meaningful. So what do the things that you can do to keep yourself afloat in the near term so that when things are better again, which the good news about sort of coronavirus in general is that we know it will go away at some point, right? This isn't some like alien invasion that might end humanity kind of a thing. It'll go away at some point. So as long as you can do what you can do to survive it, that's the important part. Got a cough.
You're fine. So I know we have like a few more of the questions from them maybe we can slam them out. Can you write off your subs to other streamers and taxes, and how would that be classified? I feel like this is probably coming from a streamer perspective, so.
Yeah. Yes, and marketing, networking, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's in the in the IRS's eyes, it's no different than if you owned a restaurant and had a booth somewhere saying come to our restaurant, or put out flyers or something like that, right? Now, you obviously don't want to be like, have your resub message be come look at my channel, because like that's just not practical, but you could still write it off.
Yeah. You're like, you could write that off, but it would not do anything for
you. It wouldn't be helpful. Yeah.
What other expenses would you factor into taxes as a broadcaster that most may not consider is another one?
Home office expenses for sure. Which you can write off basically a percentage of your rent, mortgage, whatever it is that you pay for your home costs. Basically all of your internet, probably your phone, because if you're like most of my clients, constantly on Twitter, Discord, that kind of thing, doing business stuff.
Right.
Travel to conventions. So not only your phone, but phone bill, right? So like if you need to get an upgrade. What are other things that pardon me, in terms of general things that you can write off? It is art that you commission, giveaways that you do, right? Because that's marketing. Right. It basically, the answer is anything that you're paying for that you wouldn't be paying for if you weren't streaming, plus the things that you might normally be paying for, like your internet, like a PC, right?
Right.
That directly support your streaming. The sort of general philosophy that the CPA that I work with and I take is you want to be extremely diligent about documenting all of your income. So, for instance, you said donations earlier. Tips, not donations.
Yes,
because tips.
We're not a Thousand Dreams Fund.
Right, a Thousand Dreams Fund gets donations, but broadcasters get tips. And the way to think about that is, would I be earning this money if I weren't streaming?
Right.
If it's your mom giving you $5, like, yes, probably fine, right? But almost anyone else, no, you probably wouldn't be earning that money if you weren't streaming. So it's be very diligent about documenting all of your income, especially since the IRS is probably getting 1099s from the companies paying you anyway, so they have their own documentation of it.
Right.
And then be very aggressive with your expenses. If you can make an argument that this is something that is ordinary and necessary for running a streaming business, write it off.
Right. Yeah, I used to work at Disney, and I had to wear makeup every day. So like, it was one of those things where I would be like, yeah, sorry, I have to write off all of this foundation because I am forced to put it on my face every day, sort of thing. And people are like, what?
One of my clients is a Just Dance streamer, and she writes off massages because she's dancing 4 hours a day.
Yeah, well, I can not even imagine 1,000%.
I would be sore after half an hour of dancing, much less 4 hours a day every day. So
yeah, you're just.
I would not be dancing the next day.
Yes, that was me. That's a once in a blue moon sort of thing. At what point do you think a streamer should switch to a business account? For example, this broadcaster claims they are a super small streamer and receive their payouts very rarely. Should they still be looking into business accounts?
Gotcha. In terms of they don't get the meet the $100 threshold. So there's sort of two answers to this. Well, two parts to this answer. One is it's basically free to set up a business account. Azlo, AZLO, is an online business bank that lets you set up free business banking. So since it's free, there's kind of no reason not to do it right off the bat. The secondary answer comes back to the more philosophical, what is your goal? Is this something that's going to be a hobby where you don't really intend it to earn an income, but you're an affiliate, so people still sub, tip, that kind of thing. If you intend it to be a hobby, just basically use it to cover your costs, like buying games and things like that, and call it a wash, right? If you do intend this to be a business that actually produces income for you over the longer run, then you should be extra diligent about setting up things like business banking and bookkeeping systems ahead of time, because the sooner in your business you do it, the less complex it is and the less backtracking you'll have to do to figure it all out.
That's incredible advice that I wish I had a year ago. And then I also have, are there any additional tips that you might be able to provide for those internationally or resources? This broadcaster is based in the UK.
Gotcha. There are some companies that have built up some resources for a more international audience. Pipeline is one. Pipeline.gg. I know they've got some community stuff for on the international side. A lot of the rules around, so my knowledge is primarily and almost exclusively US based. But often a lot of the rules for how you document business income and expenses are similar. There are a couple accounting bodies, like sort of regulatory bodies, that talk to each other to make sure, because obviously there are thousands and thousands of international companies where it would be crazy to have them follow 10 different accounting systems. So your tax structure will be different because every country does its own taxes differently, as suits their populace and as their populace votes. But the basics of separating business and personal, tracking what you're earning and spending, those should all still be, those are just sort of generally good business practices. Spending the time to understand how your business is doing is good business practice, right? You may eventually reach the point where you kind of don't have to care about how your business is doing because you're just earning so much money that it's irrelevant. But most of us aren't there and may never hit that spot, right? Just because it's a super high threshold. So I don't specifically myself have any resources, but I would say a lot of the basics are the same and just sort of generally good business.
Right. Yeah. Thank you.
Oh, and one other one just for everyone, including international, and this I think sort of went into your wrap-up questions, but one question to always be asking yourself when you're a business owner, which as a streamer you are, is what is something I could outsource? As a business owner, you should be spending your time doing things that only you can do and that add the most value to the business. As a broadcaster, that's generally being on camera, right? So then you ask yourself, as you build up more revenue, what are the things that I can outsource? That can be finding an agent or management group, paying someone to do your remotes, having someone come in and help you with your tech setup, having someone manage your social media. You broadcasters are, if this is something that you're doing seriously, you're always strapped for time because you spend so much time on camera and you can't really get much else done in terms of running your business when you're on camera. So take the time to spend conscious effort on what are things that you can outsource. And even if you don't have the revenue right now to outsource stuff, which is fair, everyone starts there, right? Try and plan on at what point could I afford to outsource things? Or are there other ways that I could, get someone to help me with this that, maybe I don't have the dollars for it now, but maybe there's something that they need as well.
Right. A nice trade, 1,000%.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I went straight to my brother. I was like, "Can we do an editing deal?
Yep.
I need to outsource. You need some low income cash. Let's go."
Well, and you got to know your strengths and weaknesses, right? Mm-hmm. I don't have a single artistic bone in my body, so whenever I've had stuff that needs to get designed, I know that it'll save me time and money to go elsewhere. Even if it costs me money, it'll save me time and money because it won't have to get redone 20 times because of my horrible drawings.
Yeah, 1,000%. I can't even imagine not outsourcing my art for my stream in any way. Thank you so much for coming and talking to us. I literally cannot handle the wealth of knowledge that I will walk away with today. And for answering all of those questions. It was a pleasure to meet and talk to you today.
It was great to talk with you too.
Good luck with your extended tax season.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. The good news is my job is mostly wrangle clients to get their stuff to the CPA. It's right. poor him. He just got his busy season extended 3 months because you know what's going to happen. What's going to happen is
they're pushing it
100 extra broadcasters pushing it back 3 months instead of just doing it. And so
I would definitely never be one of those people. I would definitely not do that.
Never, no.
No. Thank you so much. Have an incredible day. Extend my apologies to your CPA friend.
Will do.
Thank you.
Okay,
bye. Oh man. Hello. I'm gonna just like meditate after we have this conversation and just like try to write down. Streamers last minute? We would never. We're so well planned out and definitely not overworking ourselves in any way, shape, or form. All right. We are also going to be speaking to Kayla Cooper today. She works with 1000 Dreams Fund. She's actually like the immediate person I speak to at all times. And she's going to go over all of the stuff that's happening. There's so much going on right now, and she's going to be able to speak to you about it way better than I ever would be able to. So let me call her in so we can chat about those things. Thank you for your incredible questions. Some of those are just superb. I'm just going to go back and clip that whole conversation to keep for myself. Just check my notes. Definitely not push my taxes back.
Hey.
Hello!
Can you see me all right?
I can. You're all good. You're
awesome.
Solid. Your hair looks beautiful, by the way. It's nice to see you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Of course. How's your day going? How you holding up?
Pretty good. Obviously crazy times I feel like everybody is going through right now. So, I live in Ohio, so we are kind of in a total lockdown essentially. So I think after this, I'm gonna go play some video games, maybe some Animal Crossing.
Yes, please. A good relax. Catch a butterfly for me. I desire it. So Kayla, what is your role at 1000 Dreams Fund?
Yes, so I've been with 1DF for a little over a year now. I joined in September of 2018. So my role kind of came at a time where things were still very new for 1DF. We had just launched our BroadcastHER initiative in March of that year, and our first 50 grantees were announced, as well as our very first fundraiser as well in the same month. So obviously everything was kind of brand new, and my role kind of was needed more so in the community side of things. So we launched our first Discord. We only had 15 members, and then now it's like we're over 200. So it's crazy to look back just a little over a year ago to see kind of what it's developed into. So
yeah, that's insane and probably so rewarding.
Oh, absolutely. It just now, obviously, as project manager in 2019, we kind of just developed the initiative into exactly what it is today. So, we went from one fundraiser to now we have 4 annual fundraisers each year, 2 annual grants instead of 1. And then we also have the BroadcastHER Academy Fellowship Program, which just ended this year. But it's really cool to kind of be a part of something that is all about empowering women as well as developing them professionally, and funding them too. So yeah, absolutely.
Amazing. So we're coming to the end of March and Women's History Month. Twitch has worked with 1000 Dreams Fund to feature women each day on the front page, and some of those fundraising, but 1000 Dreams Fund has a special event planned at the end of the month. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so we kind of talked a little bit about our first ever fundraiser, Streams for Dreams, which typically happens in March, so Women's History Month. So this year, we're hosting our third annual one, and it'll be happening right at the end of this month. It's kind of a celebration of some of the leading women on Twitch while also fundraising for our BroadcastHER grants. So kind of paying it forward and giving back to the community.
Amazing. And that's happening at the end of the month. Streams for Dreams is, yeah.
Yes, yeah, it's happening. I think we're gonna obviously talk about that next, but it's happening March 29th through the 31st.
Perfect.
9 a.m. to 9 p.m. PST each day.
Yep. Amazing. And you have a goal for Streams for Dreams? What's the goal for Streams for Dreams 2020?
Yes, so our goal is $50,000 by the end of March, which is it's a big number. It's scary at first. However, already in March we've had a couple folks, fundraising and helping us get to that goal. So earlier this week we had little Sia, who was on the front page, and she actually worked with us to commit all of the funds that she raised to go to a grant specifically for a woman in dance on Twitch, which is so awesome.
I
I feel
know. I
like
saw that warmed my whole heart.
it's like, Twitch is developing, and everyone thinks gaming at first, but which it's so important, of course. But dance and creative arts, I feel like, is just something that a lot of folks don't realize is also a huge community on Twitch. So yeah, we're super excited to be able to kind of commit part of that goal, or part of that money towards the creative arts. And then obviously, I mean, in a couple days, the 29th, you'll be fundraising as well.
What? Me?
Yeah, I know. And then we also have like Bread Witchery, we have Misha Crossing, That Nerd Violet. So a lot of new faces, but also some previous fundraisers too. So I'm so
Bunch of
excited. I hope you are.
angels. I am so excited. I was also just gonna say, seeing like, especially people going into quarantine and moving more towards Twitch, seeing so many like artists, like especially come over and do like performance and music
Exactly.
on Twitch is incredible. It's like, oh,
Exactly.
people are realizing, you know what I mean, that you can do more than just game here. So we have the
Yep.
BroadcastHER grant. The spring application is currently open. Can you tell us exactly what the grant is?
Yes, so the grant is a funding opportunity for women on Twitch specifically, who might need, a level up to help them kind of reach those broadcasting dreams or goals. So this grant ranges from $500 to $2,000, which many of us know as gamers or broadcasters, $2,000 that's a lot. It can
Mm-hmm.
help you, get travel to conventions, hardware upgrades, software purchases, things like that. So, but the great thing is this grant can be used, for really anything that's going to help you kind of reach those goals.
And so when does that end?
Yes, so right now the application will end on May 15th. And then the announcement will happen roughly a month later after that. So absolutely get your application in if you're on kind of the edge of, should I do it? Should I not? What's the harm? There are no specific requirements other than being a broadcaster on Twitch and obviously a woman. So if you meet those two things, apply.
Yeah, do it. Why not? There's literally nothing to lose.
Exactly.
And constantly that you are needing to improve on your stream. It would never hurt. Or places to go.
Absolutely.
Maybe not right now, but in the future.
Yeah.
So that grant isn't the only funding available through 1,000 Dreams Fund for the gaming industry. You all recently launched the 2020 BroadcastHER Academy Challenge with Allied Esports and HyperX. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, so the Broadcaster Academy Fellowship is 1DF's commitment to kind of, I guess, help those women beyond funding develop themselves professionally. So, like you said, it's in partnership with HyperX and Allied Esports. So, there's a couple different factors like in-person mentorships, virtual mentorships, as well as the funding. So, it's really nice to be able to kind of give those resources to people who might not be able to have those otherwise.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like you don't think about it till you start doing it, but having those connections or having just that lesson or that foot up is so important.
Absolutely.
So you announced all 10 recipients of the fellowship, and what did they receive through the BroadcastHER Academy?
Yeah, so like I said, what's really cool about this is it's really a program that you're in for the long run. So they receive $1,000 of funding, and then an all expense paid trip to the HyperX Arena in Las Vegas for an in-person kind of shadowing, I guess you could say, with the Allied Esports team right there in person. So beyond that, you also have a virtual mentorship where we help match those women up with a professional in their field. So, if they're a content creator, for example, we're going to probably match them up with someone who is also a content creator or knows, the ins and outs of how they could improve. So, but also not just that, there's also pop-up events throughout the year as well, which last month I know you interviewed Harley Quinn, who went to the Esports Awards with HyperX and 1DF, which I'm not sure how she did it, but if I went on stage, I'd probably throw up a little bit. But but that's just one example of TwitchCon, other events like that they'll be able to go with HyperX or Allied Esports or us to kind of get that in-person networking, on the ground running kind of experience.
Amazing. And she's an angel also.
Yes,
So many incredible
absolutely.
angels. Could you
I
tell
know.
us a little bit more about the recipients and their dreams?
Yeah, so we had so many applicants this year. It was really hard to pick only 10 out of hundreds of them. Um, I know that we have, a huge variety this year. So, like I said, content creators, community managers, esports professionals, those who are currently competing and those who have yet to compete, which is really exciting to be able to kind of get both ends of that.
Right.
And then also, those who even want to host esports events. And, I definitely would encourage you if you're interested in the academy or any of the programs to check out our social media. And we also have more information about all of our winners there too. So, yeah.
So much valuable information that you don't want to miss out on or not sign up
Exactly.
for.
Yes.
So a lot of amazing things are happening for the BroadcastHER initiative, and it's not too late to sign up. We just said it for to fundraise for Women's History Month through Tiltify or at any time. And I mean, and to come out and show up for the fundraising at the end of the month and for everybody.
Yes.
And thank you for speaking with us. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, I don't think so. Will drop the link in the chat again one more time before we end. So that way, if you're interested in any of those programs mentioned, you can just click it and it'll take you right to our website.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Have an amazing
problem.
day.
Thanks so much, Lexi.
Bye. Oh my gosh. I feel like we are just an incredible wealth of knowledge now. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today and for learning. Thank you to Galen and to Kayla. Especially, I feel like in this confusing time, it's nice to have a little bit of like information to ground you on financially, because I think it's a thing nobody wants to talk about, but we all know that at some point we need to. And please don't forget to sign up for those things. I know there's so many incredible women in gaming and esports that could benefit from them. Like, think about the possibility that you would desperately like to play Animal Crossing on your stream, but an Elgato is a super pricey piece of equipment. Signing up for things like that and getting grant money and being able to use that to support your stream is a thing you can do. And Kayla will give you the information on how to do that. The grant is open until May 15th, and then stay tuned for March 29th through the 31st, 9 a.m. PST through 9 p.m. PST to cheer on all the streamers for Streams for Dreams, the 2020 fundraiser, including me. I'll be there, and we're going to work towards that goal of 50,000. I think we're going to do it. I think we're going to crush it way earlier than anybody expects. I'm coming in with high hopes. I believe in us. I will bring my tomatoes and we will accomplish our goals. Thank you so much for being here. I will see y'all next month. Until then, stay safe and stay inside and apply for things, okay? Goodbye.